When the name Presley is mentioned, the world instantly thinks of a rock king, a man with immortal melodies, sorrowful eyes, and a smile that enchanted millions of hearts. But behind the dazzling halo, behind the stage and the endless applause, there was always a petite woman quietly standing in his shadow, Priscilla Presley. Her story is not only about loving a legend, but also the tragedy of a woman who lived forever in the darkness of another person's crown. Even when she bore the title Queen of Graceland, if anyone ever thought that being the wife of a global icon was the greatest dream of all, for Priscilla, it was a journey weighed down by loneliness and tears. Her life was lived on the edge of admiration and oblivion. Between fleeting happiness and wounds that never quite healed, Priscilla Ann Wagner was born in Brooklyn, New York, on May 24th, 1945, a child marked by loss from the moment she entered the world. Her biological father, a U.S. Navy pilot, died in a plane crash when Priscilla was just 6 months old. Even before she could feel a father's warmth, she had to become familiar with the concept of separation. Her mother, Anna Lillian Iverson, kept the truth hidden in dusty boxes of mementos, telling her daughter never to reveal the secret to her half-siblings. Priscilla's life, from the very beginning, was a series of concealed truths and unnamed secrets. In 1948, her mother remarried Paul Beaulieu, a U.S. Air Force officer. From then on, Priscilla took his surname, and the family wandered from one place to another. Young Priscilla never had a permanent home. Friends were always unfamiliar faces, and everything slipped through her fingers before it could become familiar. This constant movement planted deep insecurity and quiet caution within her soul, making her more reserved and afraid. Each time she had to leave something precious she'd just begun to love. Priscilla's childhood was a never-ending cycle of upheaval. Maine, New Mexico, Connecticut, Texas, each place just a temporary stop for a few short years. She grew up with a constant fear: if I get close to someone, will I ever see them again? So she chose to live withdrawn, letting no one get too close. Never daring to entrust her faith to anyone, deep inside, she kept telling herself, "I'm just a passerby in other people's lives, don't expect anything more." But fate often plays tricks on people with unexpected turns. Priscilla's family once again left America, this time for faraway Germany, a land of long, bleak winters and somber streets that surrounded her unspoken loneliness. Just as they grew accustomed to the sun and wind of Texas, they packed their bags and left it all behind to begin anew. Priscilla and her parents stayed in a hotel at first, before finding a small apartment among unfamiliar neighbors. And it was in this foreign land that destiny intervened. A family friend invited the shy, reserved 14-year-old Priscilla just arrived in Europe to a small gathering. There, for the very first time, she met Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. Then 24, serving in the U.S. military in Germany. That brief moment would change her life forever. Elvis, surrounded by the gazes of many, was drawn to Priscilla's shy, delicate charm. To the famous artist, she was like a youthful version of his recently departed mother, a soul to protect, to cherish, to fill the emptiness in his heart still aching from loss. To Priscilla, Elvis was everything bright and glorious that a 14-year-old girl could ever dream of. The world seemed to collapse if he wasn't by her side. Their love, from the start, was tinged with taboo and tragedy, a love too great between two generations. Between the brightest star in music and a lost little girl in Europe. Yet, what was meant to be would be. Priscilla became Elvis's dream girl, the shoulder he turned to in his loneliest hours, confiding in her all the sorrows no one else knew. But things didn't end there. When Elvis returned to America, rumors began to swirl about their controversial relationship. The press chased them, the public gossiped, and Priscilla was left behind, drowning in longing, living through endless days, hoping for a call or letter from Elvis. When Elvis returned to America, leaving Priscilla alone in a foreign land, the young girl seemed swept into an emotional whirlwind with no way out. Each passing day was a long chain of longing, anticipation, and anxiety, when all she could cling to were hurried phone calls and distant letters, heavy with yearning. Amidst all the storms of public opinion, the age gap, and the scrutinizing eyes, Priscilla quietly clung to her love, believing that if she waited patiently enough, someday Elvis would come back and fulfill his promise. But the truth was far harsher. The media endlessly dissected their forbidden relationship. Society whispered judgment. And even within Priscilla herself, doubts occasionally surfaced. Do I really belong in his world? Is this love big enough to overcome every barrier? 2 years of waiting was 2 years. Priscilla lived in a limbo of hope and despair. Each letter from Elvis was a faint light in the dark room of her loneliness, but mixed in were countless worries. As the American press continuously reported on other women by Elvis's side, most notably the singer Nancy Sinatra, Priscilla suffered at the thought that the man she loved might no longer belong to her. Yet every time Elvis called, soothing her with sweet promises, all doubts melted away, leaving only the pure love of a girl waiting for a miracle. And at last, that miracle arrived. Elvis invited Priscilla to come live with him in America, defying all judgmental gazes and her family's objections. Priscilla's parents, though worried, couldn't resist the powerful pull of the king of rock and roll. They laid down conditions that seemed strict. Priscilla had to write home every day. All activities must be chaperoned, and Elvis had to pay for all travel expenses. Elvis agreed to everything, just to have the girl who had haunted his heart for so many years by his side. But America was not the promised land Priscilla had dreamed of. Stepping into Graceland, she realized she had entered a world entirely foreign, a world of lavish parties, stage lights, and beautiful women, always surrounding Elvis. Priscilla was like an outsider, desperately seeking a place in the life of a man who had become a legend. The pressure from the media, public scrutiny, and above all, the quiet loneliness amid the cold splendor gradually ate away at Priscilla. Day by day, Elvis, despite loving her, could not resist the allure of fame, of endless parties, and the flirtations of so many beautiful women. Priscilla understood that loving a famous man meant learning to live with betrayal. With endless rumors, the public never left them alone. The age difference became a subject for the media to exploit to the fullest, sometimes casting Priscilla as the one taking advantage of fame and Elvis as a man unable to control himself. But deep down, only the two of them knew what they had endured. They clung to each other in their loneliness, creating a tiny world of their own, where only love and unspoken dreams existed. On long nights at Graceland, Priscilla would often sit quietly by the window, gazing at the pale garden under the dim moonlight. She wondered, can I truly become a part of Elvis's life? Or will I forever remain a silent shadow beside the famous king? The fear of being forgotten, of being replaced, always haunted her, turning each day at Graceland into a relentless battle with herself. But that fragile love was still the only thing holding Priscilla there. She believed that with enough sacrifice, enough waiting, enough love, one day Elvis would realize and cherish it. Yet the more she loved, the more Priscilla lost herself. She was no longer the free-spirited girl of the past, but became a version trained to fit Elvis's desires, from her hair, her clothes, to her manners. Everything had to please the king of rock. At this point, Priscilla began to realize, to stay beside the one she loved, she had sacrificed too much, and sometimes those sacrifices were not reciprocated, even considered something to be taken for granted. Life at Graceland, seen from the outside, always shimmered like a dream. Millions of girls worldwide yearned for becoming Elvis Presley's wife, living in a grand castle, stepping onto red carpets amid endless flashbulbs and cheers. But behind the grim iron gates of Graceland, behind the lavish parties and glamorous gowns, was a quiet prison that even Priscilla herself never realized she'd entered. From her very first days in Memphis, Priscilla understood that Elvis's world was an entirely isolated universe where everything revolved around his moods, his preferences, and his unbreakable rules. Elvis was not only a lover and husband, but also the director of Priscilla's entire life. He controlled her hair color, makeup style, every item of clothing, even the way Priscilla walked, spoke, and smiled in public. "I don't like you in brown. Green looks dull on you," words that seemed gentle at first, but over the years became invisible chains that bound her youth. Priscilla, the girl who once had her own small dreams and a radiant smile, was slowly transformed into a living doll, molded to Elvis's standards. Jet black hair, a heavily teased 60s bouffant, thick makeup, every trace of the Brooklyn girl vanished. Priscilla confessed, "Elvis never saw me without makeup. I always had to be perfect, always a statue before his eyes." Outwardly, she was the woman every other woman envied. But inside, she was a prisoner of expectation and control. Elvis loved Priscilla in a unique way, but his love was filled with obsession, possessiveness, and deep-rooted fears. To Elvis, Priscilla wasn't just a wife, she was a substitute for his lost mother, a proof of perfect love in the public's eyes, a pure angel he didn't want anyone else to touch. This adoration, this protection, slowly turned into restriction. Elvis's deepest obsession was that he couldn't make love to a woman who had become a mother. After their wedding, which was just a cold, rushed, 8-minute publicity event orchestrated by his manager, Priscilla began to understand the true tragedy. Elvis nearly stopped being physically intimate with her. In his mind, the ideal woman was a holy virgin, but reality was different. As soon as they married, Priscilla became pregnant, something neither of them planned. Elvis's fear of wife, as mother, only deepened. He once confessed he couldn't love a woman who had given birth. For Priscilla, that was a wound words could never heal. Throughout her pregnancy, as her belly grew, Priscilla endured the growing coldness of her husband. Elvis became more distant, using career focus as an excuse, even suggesting a trial separation just 2 months before their daughter Lisa Marie Presley was born. Priscilla endured it all in silence, alone in the vast Graceland mansion, listening to Elvis come and go late at night, hearing rumors of other women around him, even after the baby was born, with hopes that the miracle of motherhood would heal their bond. The truth was more brutal than ever. Elvis continued his bedroom ban, spending time with other women, While Priscilla fell into deep loneliness at the heart of her magnificent home, the lack of intimacy wasn't just a physical cut, it was a soul wound that would never truly heal. It was here that Priscilla slowly awakened. She realized she had sacrificed too much for a love that was never reciprocated, for a man who never truly belonged to her, though her heart still loved. Her instincts pushed her to rediscover the self she had lost. She started taking dance lessons, going out into the world, seeking warmth in fleeting connections, just to feel alive and truly loved again. In her memoir, Priscilla admitted to a brief romance with another man, not out of betrayal, but to feel alive, to feel truly cherished. She understood then that if she stayed locked inside Graceland's golden cage, she would forever be a faint shadow behind Elvis Presley's spotlight. But leaving a king is never easy. That pain, that public scrutiny, all the burdens weighed on the petite woman once adored by the world. In the end, when love had run dry, when there were no more tears left, Priscilla chose to let go quietly, peacefully, like a final breeze blowing through the valley of memories. The breakup between Elvis and Priscilla wasn't just the end of a glamorous marriage. It was a deep fracture in the souls of two people once bound so closely. They had been the symbol of a love that conquered all barriers, admired by millions around the world. Yet, when trust is exhausted, when wounds won't heal, even the greatest love cannot save two hearts that are lonely. Even together, the day they walked out of court, holding hands, smiling at the press after their divorce, it was a historic moment. The world thought it was an amicable, civilized separation, but behind that handshake was a sky full of repressed tears, a pain too great for words. After years of being Elvis's shadow, after countless sacrifices for love, Priscilla suddenly became a free woman in a vast, unknown world. But that freedom did not bring relief, only a vast ocean of emptiness. Priscilla had to relearn how to live, how to love herself, how to accept scars that would never fully heal. She began new journeys, taking dance classes, trying her hand at acting, venturing into business to support her young daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. But deep inside, on long, lonely nights, Priscilla would still cry quietly, remembering the days with Elvis, the moments when happiness seemed within reach, only to disappear like an unfinished dream. Elvis, even as he pushed Priscilla away, couldn't hide the pain of losing the angel in his life. He threw himself into fleeting romances, dazzling concerts, but nothing could fill the void Priscilla left behind. Some nights, he would call her just to hear her voice, to ask about their daughter, and then quietly cry backstage. Their story did not end with hatred or forgetting. Instead, there remained respect, beautiful memories, and a silent protection for each other amid life's storms. Priscilla always spoke of Elvis with tenderness. I still cherish those years. Even after parting, that love remains in my heart, forever. Later, when Elvis died suddenly in 1977, Priscilla became the final guardian of his legacy. She devoted herself to turning Graceland into an immortal symbol, a place where fans around the world could gather, where Lisa Marie and their grandchildren could be proud of their grandfather, a legend not only for America, but for all humanity. But no matter how strong or brave she became, on some lonely nights, Priscilla was still just a solitary woman in a big house, quietly looking back on the years gone by, wondering, did I do the right thing? If we could go back, could Elvis and I have been happier, letting go of a great love? Priscilla didn't just lose a man, she lost a part of her youth, a piece of her heart that would never be filled again. She realized that sometimes the greatest love is having the courage to let go at the right time, to heal yourself even as your heart bleeds. And from the pain, Priscilla was reborn, moving forward in life with rare courage and pride. The scars never truly faded, but they made her stronger, deeper, and compassionate enough to forever hold on to the beautiful memories of Elvis, the man who was once her whole sky, her entire universe. If there is one thing that remains after all the tragedy, tears, and lonely years, it is the echo not only of a once blazing love, but of the journey through growth, pain, and rebirth of two lonely artists lost in a sea of people. Elvis Presley and Priscilla Presley, two names tied to legends, dazzling lights, and the dark depths of fame. But when all the stages have closed, the applause has faded. Only memories and long, silent nights remain. That's when people realize they were just fragile, vulnerable humans longing for love and to simply be themselves. Their story is not a love ballad with a perfect ending, nor a fairy tale come true. It is the raw truth about the price of fame, about silent wounds, and the extraordinary strength of a woman who dared to rise after losing everything. Priscilla was once Elvis's shadow, lost herself for love, but it was in that very darkness that she found her own light. After all the storms, Priscilla not only rebuilt her life, but became the keeper of the flame for Elvis's legacy, turning Graceland into a living symbol, not only for fans, but for herself and her family. Even after parting, that deep love remains in every glance, every smile of Lisa Marie, in every keepsake, every dusty corner of their old home. Perhaps the most painful thing is not betrayal or separation, but the feeling of not being able to save each other even when you still love deeply. That is the most beautiful tragedy of a great love, when both choose forgiveness, letting go so the other can be free. It is that choice that made them legends, not only on stage, but in the hearts of millions. There are loves that can never be complete, yet they are eternal in human memory. There are wounds that never heal, but they become our strength to move on. Elvis and Priscilla, they loved each other as if there was no tomorrow, suffered as if happiness never existed, and in the end, what remains is gratitude, thankful for having each other in this world, if only for a brief moment. And maybe each of us watchers, listeners, those who weep for this story will find a bit of ourselves in it, our weakness, longing, fears, and that fierce hope that, no matter what, we deserve to be loved and to live as our true selves. Behind the limelight, when the stage lights go out, what's left are shadows, tears, memories, and an undying love. If you were moved or found yourself silent, touched by the story behind the spotlight, leave a quiet mark of your own in the comments below. Share your feelings, because somewhere out there, many still connect with the pain, the sacrifice, and the longing for love. Don't forget to like and share this video with anyone who's ever believed in a love that transcends time. And if you want to keep discovering the untold stories, the hidden lives behind the glory, subscribe to Behind the Limelight. Every subscription, every comment, is the encouragement we need to continue sharing these lingering echoes of artists and their audiences. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for feeling. See you in the next story.